Edge. I'm Amanda Fay in for Jerry Anderson this morning. I sat down with my first guest about a year ago. It's when we first started hearing about Americans quitting their jobs in record numbers and businesses dealing with the challenges of a dwindling workforce. Now, a year later, I wanted to see if anything's changed. So joining me now, Wendy Gramza, the president and CEO of the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So has anything changed? Has anything alleviated, or are we still kind of dealing with these same challenges of trying to get people to come to work?
Well, there are still a lot of challenges. There are the supply shortages and the labor shortage that's still kind of that backlog from COVID. But now we've moved into a new arena where there are a lot of challenges facing businesses, but they're really more focused on global political unrest, a shortage of raw materials, and rising fuel costs.
We all know what that's like, and it's really impacted everything because inflation is, those costs, everything has just gone up every time we go to the grocery store, every time we go to the restaurant. I imagine businesses are dealing with this challenge. So how are they dealing with this? Have we lost a lot of them, or are they finding a way to make it work?
Well, business owners are resilient, so they always find a way, but boy, they just can't seem to get a break, right, especially small businesses. So you're coming off of 2 years of restrictions and shutdowns and closures, and now you still are dealing with a labor shortage, but now you've got rising costs. You've got rising interest rates, so borrowing money is more expensive, and you're starting to see some timid customers. I have a lot of conversations with, how much is somebody willing to pay for a cup of coffee at the end of the day? $7, $8? Ooh. I mean, there has to be a point at which consumers are going to say, enough, I'm not going to go to this establishment, or I'm not going to buy this or buy that. I mean, there is a point where that will happen. And so business owners are just trying to deal with that. They were trying to rectify the labor shortage by automating in any way that they could. But automation takes capital, and now money is more expensive. So that's not necessarily the answer either. So it's continuing to be difficult. And sometimes I think people say, oh, I go to my favorite place and there's an hour wait, or there's a lot of customers, or there's a line at the cash register. That doesn't mean that business owner is making money. Revenue is up, but so are expenses, and so profits are down.
Yeah, so you might think, oh, they're just cleaning up, they're charging me $7, $8 for a cup of coffee. But no, I mean, they're really just trying to keep their head above water, it sounds like.
Absolutely, that's a lot of what's happening.
And, are we seeing a lot of businesses having to close their doors here in the area?
Well, we did during the pandemic, and we have since then. The Chamber doesn't necessarily track those numbers of business closures, but we know that if you had business owners that were getting close to retirement, if they had a very particular, close call, or had somebody that they lost during COVID, they just decided to do something different and spend their time differently. So we had a lot of that. People just sort of saying, hey, maybe it's time for me to move on and do something else. However, through our Small Business Development Center, we have seen over 1,000 people, mostly women and minorities this year, who are looking into starting businesses. So, that's a good thing. That's one of the reasons that the City of Toledo and the Chamber, with the sponsorship from Kroger, started the RAMP. The RAMP, you can go to tolramp.biz, and you can find all of the resources in one place that are available to entrepreneurs who want to start or grow a business.
Are we talking about a variety of different types of businesses, or maybe in one particular area?
Well, we're seeing a lot right now, especially with our women and minorities, a lot of them wanting to start daycare businesses.
Oh, that's great.
And that's really good news, right? Because that's why a lot of people didn't come back to work or haven't come back to work, because maybe their child care closed, or they just didn't have a good affordable option. And so we're doing everything that we can to help them start their businesses, and to make sure that we eliminate red tape, find loan programs for them, so that they can open their business, have a high quality child care business, but yet still at an affordable price.
So there is still some investment happening here in our area.
There is, absolutely. For the 6th year in a row, Site Selection Magazine has named us in the top 10 of cities for new investment. That's looking at our peers, so cities our size. So that's great news. We of course have the GM announcement of $700 and some million to upgrade their facility for solar, is increasing their production. So we are seeing a lot of investment in the region, and that's very encouraging.
What are businesses, what are they needing, and what can we give them?
Well, I think the other thing too, while it's good news that the pipeline for projects, there's a lot out there, there's a lot of interest, but people are taking a little bit more time to make their final decision and pull the trigger. So I think because of that softening of the economy, because of some of the uncertainty, that's slowing things down a bit. But what they really need is, very simply, when you're at a local small business, be kind. Be kind to the workers. Be patient. And for the most part, I see people doing that. Why are there empty tables? And someone will say from behind, well, they probably don't have enough staff. And everybody goes, oh yeah, you're right. So I think we're really getting used to that and trying to be patient with businesses.
So what do you see ahead then for 2023? Because I do think that there is that line though where people may not be willing to sacrifice, whether that's the level of service they had been used to or the prices.
Right. So I wish I had a crystal ball, and I'm not an economist and not a fortune teller either. So don't have a crystal ball. But the economists are saying that they expect the recession to be short and shallow. So, and that all depends then on geography and what industry, you happen to make your living on, how that's going to affect you personally. We don't think it's going to be like '08. They don't think it's going to be like '08. We had the Great Recession in 2021, and right now what we're seeing is the Great Reshuffle. So people are, leaving their job, but they're getting a different job. We're seeing that the number of available jobs has dropped nationwide, over 350,000 jobs. Now again, those are national numbers, so that is going to be a little different depending on where you're at in the country and then what type of industry that you're in. So we're just seeing this shuffle of people leaving one job, and so again, when you've got a lot of new people in an organization, that also is causing some challenges for employers as they have to employ and train and orient new employees.
Are they getting crafty with their recruiting and their retention? Is that something that...
Absolutely, and we're really helping businesses with that at the Chamber. People have to look at ways that they can reduce barriers to people coming to work for them. So why does somebody need a driver's license to apply for a job? Just some things like that we've just always, always made a contingency to work, and why. So a lot of businesses are asking themselves, well, why are these things important? Why did we do this in the first place? And they're looking at different types of people, and they're looking for people in different places. One of the things that's really intriguing is second chance hiring. So hiring somebody that's been incarcerated.
Sure.
We're doing a lot of work in that area. We actually just received a grant where we're going to be doing some training and then also matching people who are about to be released with some potential employers.
Okay.
It doesn't work for everyone, and certainly there are challenges and things that you need to know, but we've got a lot of people who've been doing that even before the COVID and the recession, and they find that when they take a chance on somebody, it's the most loyal employee they'll ever have. So again, it doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for some. We're also pulling industries together to work on, even though they're competing for people at the end of the day, to really help them make sure that we understand the training that's needed, service providers understand the training and education that's needed for their employees. So coming up with common solutions within industries. We started an industry sector partnership in manufacturing. We actually partnered with one that was already up and running, and we're standing up one in the healthcare industry. And so that's a really unique way for an industry to come together and try and solve these workforce challenges.
Okay, lots of challenges, but we're trying to react and reposition and reshuffle, as you said, too.
Absolutely, right.
All right, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. And we have more coming up on Leading Edge. Stay with us. Well, it's December, and once the holidays are over, well, the joy tends to fade a little. Not much sunlight, with the cold keeping us inside. It's why this Seasonal Affective Disorder Awareness Month. It's why December is Seasonal Affective Disorder Month, and as we head into that dead of winter. So joining me now is Mercy Health Psychiatrist, Dr. Rajiv Parinja. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So, okay, first of all, tell us it's SAD. I guess we call it SAD, which is fitting. Tell me exactly what it is.
So seasonal affective disorder is a kind of depression which has a seasonal pattern, which means that people find themselves getting depressed during the fall and winter months, but they recover and feel okay during the summer months. The question about how many people get it, that is tricky to answer, and it depends on how you ask the question. So if you go to a general population and give them a questionnaire, you might find 1 in 10 people will report a significant change in their mood during the winter months. But in clinical populations, in terms of meeting the threshold for a major depressive disorder, that could be between 1 to 2%. But it tends to be higher in the northern states than the southern states, of course, because we have shorter days than our friends in Florida or Texas. So, so Ohio, and certainly the northern part of Ohio, will have a higher incidence of that.
Okay, not able to get outside as much, go for those walks, get that fresh air. So, yeah, what can people do then to kind of combat this as we're going to head into January? February is always a hard month for me.
Right. So, if you think that you have a seasonal affective disorder, which would mean that you're feeling depressed, but it is also getting in the way of your functioning in your quality of life, then you would want to see a professional. I think it's tempting to make a diagnosis yourself by going over a symptom checklist, and then there are treatments which you can buy online, because light therapy is one of the treatments, and for that you often don't need a prescription. But that is a little tricky, because not everybody who is experiencing depression has a seasonal affective depression, even if their depression is worse during the winter months. Some of them will have an underlying depressive disorder, and some of them will have bipolar disorder, and that is treated quite differently from major depression or seasonal affective disorder. So if you try and diagnose yourself and treat it yourself, and you did have an underlying bipolar disorder that was not diagnosed, you may make things worse. So again, with mental health, sometimes the symptom checklists overlap for different conditions. So see a professional, get them to do the proper clinical interview, get a diagnosis, and then get a treatment plan with them.
Don't try to make decisions on your own. Yeah, as you said, you could make things worse. And I think even the last couple years, with the pandemic, and it really has affected our mental health. So it could very well be, something else and not seasonal affective disorder too.
Absolutely. I think people are reporting higher levels of depressive symptoms, higher levels of stress, and the pandemic has been hard on all of us. And people who have a vulnerability to mental illness, or who may have a history of mental illness, have certainly found it harder than others.
If you have somebody in your life that you might be a little worried about, or you might be concerned, what are some signs, some symptoms that you should really be looking out for?
So seasonal affective disorder is a little peculiar and a little different sometimes from other depressive symptoms. So of course, you have the depression, the lack of motivation, the fatigue, the inability to enjoy things that you normally enjoyed. But you also have sort of more time spent sleeping, more time spent in bed. Seasonal affective disorder is associated with an increase in appetite and a craving for carbohydrates, which is not always present in all depression. Some forms of depression will have a loss of appetite. So seasonal affective disorder can also lead to irritability in some people, especially younger people. It tends to predominate among younger people compared to older people. So if you're having these signs, lack of motivation, fatigue, and if you find that you are just not enjoying life as you did, that is time to seek help. And sometimes it is not the person themselves who will notice it, because the process happens so slowly that you kind of think that this is normal. But your friends, your family members will see that you are not quite as you were 6 months ago, and they may prompt you, and they should encourage you to go and have that assessment to see if you have a mental illness, because most mental illnesses are very treatable, and the quality of life that improves with having a mental illness that's treated can be significant, and people may not expect it, especially when the mental illness itself is making them feel hopeless, worthless, and unmotivated.
So you could simply by taking that step, reaching out, seeking help, you could make a huge difference in your life, maybe a loved one's life as well. So we all, just want to be in our best space that we can be, right?
Absolutely.
All right, doctor, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate this. I think it's going to really resonate with a lot of people.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And we're back with more Leading Edge right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back. Joining me now, Lucas County Commissioner Tina Skeldon-Wozniak. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So happy to be here and to talk about this important project.
Yes, so, we're talking about Lucas County Canine Care and Control. And first of all, we want to remind pet owners that this is the time of year that you need to renew your dog licenses for 2023 because it is the law.
You're darn right. And plus, there's so many benefits to having a dog license, and it's only $25 if you are able to purchase your dog license in the allotted time, which is until January 31st. And it's important because should your dog, escape from you or, leave your yard or have just a mishap that so many of us can claim that we've had, you can get your dog back, sometimes not even entering the shelter at all.
But also, these fees go to help support the shelter, Canine Care and Control, and what they do all year round to help out our animals, our dogs running around. And that also leads me to this next topic, which is, hey, there's a new shelter in the pipeline.
Yeah.
How's that all going?
We're so excited. I think we shared a beautiful picture of a draft rendering, which is totally different than our current shelter. And thank goodness, people have really wanted us to proceed with a new canine care and control, and it's going to be so inviting. It's going to have a, adoption side, and then a side where you have to bring in your little puppy that might need, health care, or might be some of our seniors maybe that can't keep track of their dogs anymore, have to turn a dog in, and we'll just have areas that are appropriate for animal care. And it's going to be beautiful. It's going to have more space, lots and lots of sunlight and air and cleanliness, and just a beautiful place for the workers as well as for families that want to adopt a dog, and just a better chance to have good animal care.
This is going in the location where the Early Vote Center used to be, there at 13th and Monroe Street. So it's still kind of in that downtown area, easy to get to. And how is construction going? Have we, broken ground yet?
That's a great question. So right now we're in the final design phase. So we'll sort of tweak whether or not the rendering and the items that they've prepared for us are suitable to the standards that are required in a shelter now. So we have a little bit more work to do. But while that's occurring, remember, we have to demolish the current building that's on that site on 13th and Monroe. So the goal is that, early next year and into 23, we'll be able to demolish the site, get it all prepared, and then we can go out for bids for the new construction.
Okay, so just a little bit behind schedule, I guess. I think we were looking at maybe fall 2022 for the beginning of this, and then opening in 23. So now we're looking at hopefully being open by 2024.
I think what happened to us was not unlike, or no surprise to you, when COVID hit. It sort of put everybody in a situation where you weren't really sure how to proceed. And at the time, we were also working on, the beautiful new hotel, the Hilton Hotel, and working on the convention center. And we were trying to be sure that our sales tax remained strong, and that, that we were in a position that we could go ahead and proceed with a really state-of-the-art facility.
Let's talk a little bit about the cost. How is this being funded?
Well, that's a really good question. So we have some options out there, and one of them is you know, with the beautiful opportunity to have a decent sales tax revenue, that we could be in a situation that we can actually put a lot of money, actual cash, into this facility so that we don't own debt for a long period of time to come. We're still sort of putting the final touches on that, as well as knowing what the final cost will be. Following the demolition of the building and early in 23, we'll start to go out for the bids for the construction costs. And as you know, inflation has hit quite a bit. We projected pretty much during COVID that we were in about a $20 million price tag. We expect that that price is going to go up. We're going to be able to afford it. We're going to be able to do it. And for once and for all, we'll have a new shelter.
Well, we are looking forward to seeing that completed, and hopefully we will have lots of happy pet owners and pups finding their forever homes.
Absolutely. They're going to start out better than they did before with good care, in a brand new environment. And that's what we care about, so that people like you can take a pet home and really have a good start.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner, for joining us this morning, and we'll look forward to getting updates on this project in the months ahead.
Great. Thanks to everybody. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Take care. And we're back with more Leading Edge right after this. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to all of my guests. Have a great day.